Hey, this is Gen X Amplified, episode number 15. And on today's show, we are going to have an awesome conversation with someone I consider to be a true Renaissance Gen Xer as we deep dive into photography, podcasting, and the importance of providing value to others. So, you ready? Let's do it.
And I tell my kids, no matter what, you do what you love. You find a way to do it. You find a way to make some money from it. You find a way to help people. If you do that, you cannot fail.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrian Porter.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified. This is the podcast for you, powerful, exceptional generation between those brilliant boomers and magnificent millennials. First, I want to thank you so much for listening in, for downloading, and just for spending this time with us. And I tell you, you will not be disappointed with this episode. That's because my featured guest today is an award-winning photographer, vlogger, and mixed media artist. She has been a photographer for over 15 years and has had plenty of photos and original art published in books and magazines. Now, as an experienced speaker, she has had the privilege of speaking at many conferences and has led workshops on relationship building, photography, blogging, and building communities online. Now, recently, she launched an amazing podcast called Hello, Friend, featuring candid conversations with guests that gives a glimpse into how they live their most awesome life, about what they're reading, pop culture, and why they are simply awesome. So everyone, please welcome today's Gen Exceptional guest, the likable, the lively, the lovely Lucrecer Braxton. What is going on, Lou?
Oh, that was hands down probably one of the most awesome introductions of life.
Oh, you're too kind.
Thank you.
You're too kind.
That made me blush. I was like, darn it, I am awesome.
Well, the introduction is only as awesome as the introductee, if that's a word. So that's the right word. So welcome aboard. Thank you for joining me on Gen X Amplified. I'm stumbling over my words. I'm so excited to have you here. So
it's okay. I am excited to be here. This is going to be so much fun.
Oh, it is. And we were just talking briefly right before in the pre-show that I never met you formally, but I've met you virtually, which is the way of the world now in this new media landscape. And we have a couple of people that we know that you associate with, CC Chapman, the great CC Chapman. And,
I love him so much.
He is awesome. I had him on the show, and now I am very fortunate to have you on.
Thank you. I am in good company. I am completely humbled and privileged. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, before I really get into the meat of this valuable conversation we're going to have, I have to say, now, I did my little research and it didn't take long, but I stumbled on something that I felt like, okay, I'm a big Prince fan, right?
Oh my goodness.
I'm a huge Prince fan. And whenever I meet another Prince fan.
Ow!
Now you're going to don't make me start singing Prince on this podcast.
We can turn the whole show into nothing but singing tunes.
And wait a minute. And also, this is crazy. So I used to make mixtapes back in the day.
Did you?
Because I'm a big music junkie. Everybody that knows me knows that I love music. And I used to love making. Well, first of all, we're on Gen X Amplify. So what Gen Xer did not go through that experience of making mixtapes?
I'm telling you. Tapes, not tape.
TDK, Maxwell, Memorex, side A, side B.
Yes, 90 minutes. And if you got you one that was longer than that, you thought you were somebody else. It was the gold standard tape that you needed for the best mixtapes.
All right, so you have to tell us what was your favorite? What type of mixtape did you love doing? Like what type of genre? Or did it matter? Was it all about the mood you were trying to set? Like what was your thing?
Well, you make that sound like I was making an adult mixtape or something. I mean,
no.
I was making these as a teenager. So at that time, it was music like UTFO, the Roxanne.
Okay.
There would be a little bit of Shaka Khan mixed in there with I Feel For You, Black Butterfly. I mean, and it was all that Florida bass style music that just flowed up to the States. I mean, you had music come in different ways in the States. It either came from Florida up to the Midwest, or it came from England over across the lake, or it came from New York down, and it's just all that underground music, but it's just all that booming bass and Egyptian Lover.
Oh, no.
Wiki. Yes, I did take it there.
No. No, you cannot.
Give me that freaky nation, the so female population. Yes. Yes.
And my beat goes boom.
Oh,
I know.
And my beat goes boom. And even, you would sneak in, even though you weren't supposed to be listening to it, a little bit of Too Short.
Okay.
Or all them other things. And,
wow.
the songs you shouldn't have been.
Right. All right. So you're going to, after this podcast, you're going to make me go pop lock or something after this. So, this is too much. All right. So we could talk about music for hours, but we could circle back too. But I definitely want to get into, because you have a very fascinating story. As I mentioned in the intro, you are a quintessential photographer, and I've seen many of your photos online, and they're beautiful. They tell great stories, and I'm all about storytelling. That's what we're about here. And also you have your podcast, but I would love for you, Lou, to briefly walk us through your own personal story and your journey and how that led you to what you're doing now with the photography, with the speaking, and also with the podcast launch.
All right. Well, I got into photography. I've always been an artist. Ever since I was a little girl, always drawing in some kind of way. And I just assumed that's what I would do when I got older. I would be this fine artist until I found out that it takes a lot of effort and massive talent to become a fine artist that actually makes money. I didn't want to starve and be that starving artist. So I ended up rolling into graphic design and started doing that for a living. I'm a graphic designer by trade.
Okay.
And have an obsession with paper, unnatural obsession and love for paper and how it feels and just great printing and design and color. And started doing that, and I got bored. I had my second child, and I was just burnt out doing the work that I was doing. I wasn't inspired by it. And I think it was because where I had been working, I'd been there 3 years at that time, and the projects start to repeat themselves every year. And I was just bored. So I needed something to do. So I decided to take a photography class and learned how to shoot manually. So this was before digital cameras. Digital cameras were out, but I learned how to shoot with film, black and white, learned how to develop photos, and it really, coming from an artist perspective, a fine artist perspective into photography, it was a totally different way of looking at the world for me. When you draw as an artist, you're trying to give people an idea of the spatial look of a room or the look on someone's face. So you draw a lot of detail. But with photography, you don't do that. You want people to hone in on a specific something, be it a person in the picture or their eyes or something. You're telling a story with it.
Right.
And what I found was that photography allowed me to do what I had always been doing all my life, which was telling stories. I am fascinated by stories, not just telling them. And I have a story for everything. I don't know how to give a gift without having a story to go with the gift.
Okay.
Be it that I fought people at Target to get the gift. I give a gift with a story every single time. And it just led me to shooting the photography. The photography led me to doing scrapbooking. And scrapbooking led me to working with a multitude of amazing brands and collaborating with friends, honing my art in a different way and creating the mixed media art. And all of that led to blogging for years. And the blogging led to speaking at conferences. My first conference I spoke at was Blogger in 2008 in San Francisco. And I had no idea what this whole mommy blogger thing was. I didn't consider myself a mommy blogger, even though I had kids. And it was just an experience, but it opened up opportunities that I am afforded right now simply because I did something different. I was bored. And all of that led me to podcasting. I've been listening to podcasts for years, and years. Ridiculous. Easily when people didn't know what the heck they were. I just thought they were the greatest thing.
So even before the recent,
I have been a
even
connoisseur.
before the recent renaissance, I guess you're saying even like during the early years, like what 2000
heck yeah.
2010.
I was listening to easily. I was listening to photography podcast. And how do you listen to a photography podcast? But this one guy had a great one where he had images that went along with his show. And that's what I would listen to. Or I would listen to ones on scrapbooking or crafting or something to that effect. Not like I listen to now where people have just taken podcasting to a whole new level. So I got into it, listening to it. Planned Hello Friend for a year. I'm not lying. I pulled out all my notes from a year's worth of planning. I was invited to come and speak at Podcast Movement this year. And I didn't have a podcast. And I was like, how are you going to go and speak at a podcasting conference with no podcast, knowing good and well what they're going to ask you is, what's your podcast about? It's like going to a blogging conference and they say, what's your blog about? Oh, I don't have a blog yet. I was like, no, you cannot go and speak and not have a podcast. So in 3 weeks, I busted my behind and put together a podcast. And that was my music, the artwork, marketing it, finding my first 6 or so guests, booking them and putting everything together. Hands down, the hardest work I have ever done in my life, but it is also the most rewarding thing that I have done. It has allowed me to meet people like you. Podcast. Can you believe that? Right. I mean, of all the things in the world, it has afforded just opportunities to meet and connect with people. And at the heart of who I am, it is about connecting. It is the connection with another person. I call them kindreds. When you meet that person where you're just like you are a kindred because you said mixtapes and Prince, that right there, I'm like, oh, we are connected on a soul level right here.
Right. No, definitely. All right. So there's so much there that you so eloquently and brilliantly articulated. It was a great story. And I want to dig in even a little more to that story because first, you mentioned that you had this fascination with paper, which is very, very, very interesting, and you started scrapbooking. Now, when you were scrapbooking, because you said that led you to some other things. Now, obviously, I'm assuming that was for personal reasons initially, like what family, just events that you went through in your life. Correct? Was it a hobby, or did it automatically jump to professional because you said you started doing things for other businesses?
It started strictly as a hobby. Okay. And for the first year and a half of doing the scrapbook page, they were just pictures of me.
Got it.
I told people, and I still tell them, I'm not vain. You will see a lot of self-portraits of me. It's one of the things that I'm known for with my photography. The reason I take so many pictures of myself was because I couldn't get my kids to sit still. And there's only so much candy you can bribe a kid with until you're like, okay, fine. So that led me to being able to take pictures of other people. And because I had taken so many pictures of myself, I knew how to have them turn to the light.
Right.
And I was able to photograph other people better. So I tell people that when I do a photo shoot with them, I want them to feel amazing. Everybody deserves to have a great picture. Everybody. And there is nothing worse than someone saying, I'm just not photogenic. I said, no, that's not it. You just haven't had the right person to take your picture. And it's something that I put out there when I'm at conferences. Friends know. I'm like, they're like, I need a new headshot. I'm like, let's go. I found there's a spot outside. Let's go. Because everybody deserves to have a great picture. You are not less photogenic than someone else because they put on a lot of makeup or they know how to use the heck out of some Photoshop filters. Everyone is photogenic. You just have to have the right person know how to connect with that part of you that's inside and know how to take that picture and make it show on the outside.
Well, I'm so glad you said that everyone deserves a great picture, and because I've had so many experiences, whether as me as a consultant when I'm coaching and consulting with people on social media or just building their brand digitally, and I've had too many people that have not. I hate their LinkedIn profile has that ugly silhouette. And a lot of times it's out of maybe some of it is just, they just don't know or unaware of the importance of it. But sometimes it's because they're fearful that they don't have the right photo to use. And you cannot in this new media age afford to represent your brand without a photo. So I'm glad you actually said that. And it's actually even a step further. I'm glad that you are like on the spot, that you look, let's go. Like I can do this. Yes. And let's make sure that you are effectively represented as a personal brand with a great photo in mind. So you mentioned the photography. And this is some great stuff. So I want to really get into scrapbooking, pictures of you. Your kids couldn't sit still, but you really you perfected the art of photography. The scrapbooking led you to the blogging. And you said that at the time you really didn't know what a mommy blogger was, but that even led you to speaking. And it's interesting. Are you listening, everybody? Like the tools that we have to really magnify you as a person are phenomenal now. I mean, we're talking about scrapbooking, blogging, speaking, and we're sitting here on this podcast. And I really want to talk about, your story with that, because what was fascinating is with the blogging led you to speaking. Had you had much experience speaking prior to that when you started being asked to speak at these events?
Not at all. That was the first event, and I was completely terrified. I was speaking on a panel with other people. Okay. And even though I was on the panel, what led me to the speaking was that I built a relationship with someone, and she just happened, we had never met. She just happened to remember reading my blog, and that my blog was positive, that I put out stuff that lifted people up. I wasn't complaining, which was just out there. It's prevalent in our world right now. And that was the panel I was speaking on, was that one that was about positive posting and sharing positive information and finding a way to do it. But it was because of a relationship that somebody remembered me 2 years. That was a 2-year relationship that someone remembered me and said, I know someone who would be great to speak on this panel. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. So I tell my children, I said, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's in the works. You never know who's thinking about you. So when you're sitting there having your pity party and feeling sorry for yourself, just think that there is something happening in the universe. There is something out there. There are people who are thinking about you and saying, I know that person is it. So that's why I tell people it's more important to build a great relationship than to go out there and try to build your giant following online. That doesn't mean a single solitary thing when it really comes down to it.
I love that. Build relationships. You're right. That is so important. I mean, a lot of times we do focus on those vanity numbers, number of followers. Mm-hmm. And at times, it does feel good. It's kind of a sugar high. But those numbers, they don't mean anything if 80% of all your followers aren't engaging with you, or you can't develop relationships.
Yes.
So that's very telling. Now the blogging, so the speaking, now the podcast, which I find it fascinating that when we talk about podcast movement, and I want to talk about that a little more, because unfortunately I wasn't able to attend. I didn't attend the first one, or last year I didn't attend, only because we just had a baby girl.
Oh,
and
baby.
Exactly. Well, this year I should say, not last year, but this year. So yes, I actually got a chance to meet Jared, the co-founder of Podcast Movement. Great guy.
He's so awesome.
He is phenomenal. Jared Easley, if you're listening, and if you're not, I'm going to get you. No, I'm just kidding. But Jared's a great guy. I actually met him in Vegas at NMX, and awesome, friendly, the quintessential just networker. But what he and Gary have done with Podcast Movement, and I haven't attended, but I've heard about it, is phenomenal. So the fact that you went and you were asked to speak, and I didn't know this until you just told me this, you didn't have a podcast. So
I did not.
Okay, so you have to tell me, and I may have missed it, but so how did you get that role? Was it just from strictly relationships, or and what did you speak about at Podcast Movement?
So Jared and I have never met, or had not ever met. We would have this love fest on Twitter where it would be like, you are awesome. It's like, no, you're awesome. You are super awesome. No, you are super awesome. Then Leslie Samuel would jump in and he'd be like, can I get some of this love? So there would be like this string of, no, you are awesome. No, you are. And what I noticed about Jared was that he is a connector. Yes. He knows how to connect people together, the right people together. And when you meet someone who makes it not about them, he completely decreases who he is and elevates other people. How can you not want to do something for someone who does that? So he asked me and said, hey, I would love for you to come and talk they had what were called PMX talks, similar to a TED Talk, where everybody had a certain amount of time and you spoke on a specific or a particular topic. It just had to be not necessarily podcast related, but in some type of way related to podcasting.
Okay.
And it was because of that and again, this was about a year and a half of love festing on Twitter and everywhere else. And, when he had first put his book out, he had, said, hey, I would love if you could share this. So I was like, great. So I went and bought the book and read it and let people know this is a great book if you're trying to get into podcasting. And it was just a great thing. I wanted to be a part of, I had heard that the first podcast movement was good. I didn't attend that one. This second one, for a second year conference, they took it to a level that you expect to see in people who have been doing it for years. It was amazing, amazing experience that they created. So from just that relationship building online with him, that's how it led to me being able to speak at the conference. And I spoke about mixtapes and DJing. So my entire talk was about and it took me back because I was like, well, what do I talk about? I was maybe 3 shows deep with my podcast that had been published when I had went to speak at the conference. So I'm like, what in the heck how am I going to sit here and talk to people about podcasting is amazing and you should do these types of things? I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to give them my personality. So mine was rather comical. I talked about how I wanted to be a DJ when I was a little girl and the process of building the mixtape off of the songs on the radio and how the DJ would mess up your song because he just had to let you know who he was and who the radio station was, what the name of the song was and the artist. And you're like, don't you realize I am creating a mixtape here? And then that led into me telling them how I got into, and what I didn't realize in the room I was sitting in was that there was a huge Florida delegation there. And so when I mentioned there's this style of music that I loved in my mixtapes, and it was called the Miami bass style. And the room erupted with people going, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, why are they all going, yeah? And then I was like, oh, I said, Florida rolled deep up here in Texas this year for this podcast movement. Right. So it was great having people be able to relate to my story. I had no idea if it would resonate, but it resonated because I took them back to their childhood. I mentioned songs that they used to listen to, and everyone else who may not have been familiar with the song remembered making tapes and how it felt for them, and the other stories that I built into it. And I just put my personality into speaking, and that helped me get through the talk because I get nervous before every single talk, but I get nervous and I just channel that energy into the audience and give them something great.
Now, see, you just made me feel even more because I didn't attend. I would have loved to have been there listening to this.
It's going to be in Chicago next year.
Oh, I'm definitely there in Chicago. But the speech that you gave, you talked about mixtapes and DJing. I mean, that is my vice. I love that. And it's funny. I share the same experience when I was making my mixtapes off the radio. Yes, I did. And this is Gen X amplified, so us Gen Xers, we know that. Yes. And I would I would do different mixtapes, but definitely like the Quiet Storms and back in the day. And and then the DJ would just the song would be going on and it's just a nice little groove and the music is playing and all of a sudden you hear this is Quiet Storm. WHBQ coming up. This is Smokey Robinson with Cruising. I'm like, okay, you're messing up my game. Okay. But no, that is the power. And I talk about this all the time as building a personal brand, just a business. the power of being yourself and resonating and telling personal stories and knowing your audience. Now, what was fascinating is that you didn't at that time, that didn't really hit you at that moment that the audience would be primarily a huge Florida, not primarily, but you would have a huge Florida delegation there. But you knew that the people that were there would probably find your story at least humorous and hopefully fascinating, which they did. And it's all about connecting. And
it was a responsibility too, because I kicked it off in the room that I was in.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I wanted to kick it off right, not figuring that a majority of the people speaking would be talking about podcasting in some type of way.
Exactly.
And I didn't. And that mine was very humorous in some way because they could relate to, I mean, I talked about relationships with friends who would steal my mixtapes and try to pass them off as their own, not realizing that mixtapes have a signature song that you either start or you end with. You can't go and steal your friend's mixtape. So I gave them that whole thing and I ended it with, I said, so my girlfriend didn't understand that my mixtape brings all the boys to the yard. Damn right, it's better than yours. Damn right, it's better than yours. I could teach you, but I have to charge. And I said, but you don't teach a heifer how to make a mixtape when she steals your mixtape to get your man. So they just fell out because they could relate to that. And I was like, there you go. You relate to the teenage years.
Right.
You know, and everybody can relate to that in some kind of way.
Oh, they can. And, you know, I hate I missed that. But, and I really wanted to go too, but, you know, actually what was more important is that, you know, we were here, we celebrate the birth of my new daughter. And I'm so excited. She is so wonderful. And I know
you sound like you are wrapped around her little finger.
Oh, it's over with. And I have and people that listen to the podcast, I've talked about my 6-year-old a lot. And he actually was a guest. He gave a guest intro on one of my episodes with John Lee Dumas. So people heard his voice. But no, I love my son Cameron to death. And he's my partner. And when Kaylin came into my life, you know, she's right now at around 9 weeks. I tell you.
Oh, she's brand spanking new.
No, she is straight out. She is brand with a price tag on, brand new. I mean, but no, it is an amazing thing. I mean, it's really amazing. But no, that's the reason why I didn't get a chance to attend. But I will say that your podcast, which we're going to get into, and the episode where you really broke down podcast movement, I want to first personally thank you for that episode. So I listened to it. Yeah.
My pleasure.
And because I didn't get a chance to go. And right afterwards, I tried to go online and catch some of the blogs that were writing about it and tweets and follow along with the hashtag. But obviously when you have a newborn baby and you're running a business and you're launching a podcast and you're doing coaching, and it's hard. But, you know, when I came across you and started looking at what you were doing and your brand and then listened to your podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, it has an entire episode dedicated to recapping the greatness of podcast movement. So I tell you that I got a lot out of that. And this is for everyone that is listening, and just good advice, or just good insight, I should say, not advice, is that what was great about your episode is that you just did not dedicate, 15, 30 minutes to just talking about how you love the conference, which you did, but you literally went into certain sessions. You talked about key takeaways. You named names of products and brands. And for those of us in the podcast world, types of mixers and headphones. And so I tell you, it was very valuable. It was very entertaining. And I thank you for that. So speaking of Hello Friend, let's talk about, you went to Podcast Movement. You went to Texas without a podcast. You brought the house down with an exceptional speech. Nonetheless, you rushed after that speech and put together a podcast.
Oh, right before.
Oh, so right. I'm sorry. Right before. So
I had launched with a 4-minute and 54-second episode telling people, so teasing the show.
Okay.
Then I launched with, I think, 2 shows. And by the time I got to Podcast Movement, I was 3 shows in. So It was still very new, like your baby girl.
3 shows. So Hello Friend was just like Kaylin, my baby girl, brand new, new guests, new episodes. Now, how was the learning curve of learning the technical aspect of putting a podcast together for you?
Now, because I had been planning for a year, I knew about all the gear. I can tell you about microphones. I can tell you about mixers. I can tell you everything. But you don't always have the money to go and buy all that stuff. So I knew that there were some basic things I was going to need. I was going to need a microphone. I was going to need some headphones. And I decided I was going to go all in and get Adobe Audition. I said, if I'm going to go on ahead and learn how to do this, I'm going to go all in because I'm on PC primarily. And I decided I'm going to learn how to do this. So I dedicated an entire weekend to teaching myself how to use Adobe Audition. And I found a great YouTube channel where this guy walked you through everything from opening up the document to learning how to record something into the tool and setting up your microphone and everything. And I proceeded to cuss for 2 full days while I tried to shoot. I also shoot video, but while I tried to record a 4-minute and 54-second show to just tell people what Hello Friend was going to be about.
Right. Hands
down, the most torturous thing. It was like giving birth again without the intense pain, just pain on another level. But the learning curve, if you want to jump right in, you can do it. There are no excuses. I planned for a year. It was an excuse. I made excuses because I did not think my show was going to be good enough. I didn't think my concept was going to be good enough. But I knew what I wanted it to be about. I knew I didn't want it to be an interview show. I knew I didn't want another business podcast. There's a ton of those out there that I can recommend to people. But I knew that I was going to talk to amazing people who just happen to be entrepreneurs, artists, business owners, people just doing their own thing. So organically, the show, there's been a lot of authors on my show, and a lot of authors have contacted me to be on the show after hearing Todd Henry's episode. And they're like, dude, and I've had friends who are like, how did you land that? I said, relationship, y'all. I had a friend who goes to his church. And he was launching the new book. I've read all of his books. We live in Cincinnati together. And it's just the relationships. Those have been so powerfully amazing in even what I've been able to do with the podcast. It's eye-opening, opportunity opening.
Now, how would you describe your podcast? And I described it a little bit in the intro, but obviously it's the best coming from you. Like, what makes your podcast? You said you didn't want to do another business show or interview show, but what makes your podcast very, very special and stands out?
I welcome people into the Friends Lounge. This is basically an extension of a conversation that we would have at a conference. So the one thing that I love about attending conferences are connecting with people. I love the side conversations where you sit down with someone over a glass of wine and it's like, okay, catch me up on your life. That's what Hello Friend is. It's those extensions of conversations. This is what I would talk with people about, which is why my show is so unstructured. I don't let anyone know ahead of time what we're going to talk about. I go and stalk them for a couple of days to see what's currently going on in their life, if they have any projects. And I'll bring things up. But I also am very strategic in thinking about my listeners. And is this going to be interesting to them? Can they glean something from this person's life? And because I'm fascinated by people and their story, people tell their stories. And they're very organic. We talk about either how we've connected in some way. I'm very careful about inside jokes that no one would get because I want them to connect to the person that I'm talking to and sharing with them. So my show is, it is about my listener. It really is. But it's about me being a connector to some new people. I've loved the feedback from people who did not have any idea about some of the guests. And they're like, she was hilarious. I can't stop reading all of her stuff now. I've gone to find her on this. I've been following her on that. And it's just great that you're introducing me to people that you find amazing. And that's what it is. I find people where I'm like, oh, I got to talk to you. We got to talk. I've got to share what you're doing with people. And we have a huge startup community here in Cincinnati. And somebody just had something funded recently. And I sent him a message after realizing he was funded. And I was like, oh, no, we got to talk about this. Because you're the first person I know in person who has had something funded through Kickstarter. We got to talk about this. So I'm waiting for him to tell me we're going to talk. Because it's just incredible. I love the product. And I think other people would too. So we'll see where that goes. So that's what my show is about.
No, it's a great show. And as I mentioned, I have listened to the podcast. I've listened to at least 3 episodes. And because I think I kept playing the podcast movement episode over and over again, just taking notes for personal reasons. But it's a great quality show, and it is, and I feel it's a breath of fresh air. It's not structured. It's very lively. I mean, you definitely bring your personality to the podcast, which is always important, and your guest. It seems like that you bring it out of them, and I'm sure that you intentionally make sure that the people that you do bring on, that they are able to provide, some great content, whether it's educational or entertaining.
Yes.
But that the vibe is right there, because like you said, you really want to replicate that side conversation at the conferences, at the bar, in the lounge, and when that's when the real networking happens. I tell people
that's exactly it.
When you go to these conferences, I mean, you can sit in the sessions, and I love the sessions. I love taking notes in the presentations, but where the magic really happens? It's after the sessions, is in the hallways.
After the session, yes.
And so that's great that you're bringing that type of dynamic into this audio podcast meeting, which I am a huge fan. And I'm actually a novice myself when it comes to having my own podcast. I mean, this podcast is fairly new, but I've worked in audio before. I was an audio branding consultant, and I've been around media and marketing, but as far as, podcasting is a different beast. And I tell you, like you, I was an avid listener to podcasts before I launched. I loved it. I'm an audio guy by nature. I love audio books, and I'm an audio learner, and I love consuming the medium. So, the fact that, you have taken something that you're passionate about as a consumer of content, and now you're creating something of your own is great. And the show is awesome. I love your music too. I know you're a music person. The intro and the outro, the little yeah. I was feeling that. I got to give you kudos for that.
I admit I danced to my music, and that was the criteria for it. I had gone through about 3 or 4 sites, found one, and just listen to songs, and everything just had to sound right. And then I called my girls in, and I said, okay, I've narrowed it down to 2 songs. I want you to listen to it and tell me which one is more me. And they said, oh, okay. So I put on the first song, which was what you hear as the intro of my podcast. And it's just dum bum 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 bum. I mean, it reminds me of a band. I went to a historically Black college, and that is what it reminds me of.
Right.
And then it just goes into that ow, and I'm like, yes. So my girls said that was the song that I reacted to. They said you had your eyes closed, but you were moving to it the entire time. They said that's how we knew that was the song. And it is hands down completely my personality. That is, wow. I love that.
No, it's that is important. I love the song too. Now, Lucrecer, how would you say your life has changed since launching the podcast, or has it at all? Or if it has, how would you describe the change?
How has it changed? I am more optimistic, but I'm not more optimistic because the show is doing well or not doing well. It's because I'm doing something that I love. And this is one of the first things that I've done that it's all mine. It's mine. It's my show. No one's told me what to say, how to do it. It belongs to me. It represents exactly who I am. And I own that. And it makes me feel so good. It's like when I hit the button to publish, even though it takes me way longer than I anticipate to put the show together and the show notes and to publish it, it feels so good because the satisfaction is just that was a good show.
Right.
I really enjoyed that. It's the one thing that belongs strictly to me, and that is 100% representative of me. And I have owned that. And owning it and encouraging other people. This is the one thing where I've not felt the need to compete with people. I've had some people say, the quality of your show, I can't believe you just started. They said, your show sounds amazing. It sounds like you've been doing it for a long time. And I said, here's the thing. You have to practice your craft. I've been doing videos for about 3 or so years. I said, it took me a year to do my first video because I didn't think that I would sound okay on camera. But now I am a straight fool on video. I don't care if people like me or not, as long as I love me and the right people love me and my children love me. And I've got I have kindred spirits who will be there for me in any kind of way. If anything, podcasting has brought me more people, a different flavor of people who just give you things. And it reminds me that there are good people in the world. So for me, it has helped to renew my sense of believing that humanity can get it right one day. And that's been huge for me.
No, it is. It's a very high quality and podcast, and I'm very much into. I mean, me personally, I think quality is important, but not at the expense of taking action. And I say that seriously because, even though I'm an audio geek, but that shouldn't. If you're thinking about launching a podcast, take action. Don't wait till you have the best equipment. Don't wait till you have the best mic. I personally invested in certain things, but that's me. But, if you are sitting on the fence, if you're trying to launch a podcast, trying to launch your blog, trying to launch your business, and you feel that you may not have the top of the line resources, don't wait, don't procrastinate, take action. But it's definitely a very quality show, not just the acoustics, but also the content. And I truly give you kudos for that. Your story, and we're thinking about, and I'm going to transition a little bit to just talking a little bit more about our generation and Gen Xers and that, that generation between, mid 30s to 50. And a lot of us and people that are listening in to this podcast and my audience, they are struggling. They are struggling with defining, who they are in the next 10, 15 years of their lives, because they may be successful on their job. They may want to start a business. They may have already launched a business. Many of them have kids. Many Gen Xers have families. They're thinking about their financial future, this tough financial market that we're in right now. But the opportunities that we have at our fingertips have never been there before, like any other time, when it comes to being able to build a business and tell your story. So can you just talk a little bit about, to that Gen Xer, like thinking about your own personal story, Lucrecia, how you embraced, your passion for paper and texture, into scrapbooking, and then into writing, and then into the visual medium, and now in the audio medium. And you've been able to really take advantage of the platforms that we have in this new media marketplace. Can you talk a little bit to that Gen Xer and just talk about how can someone in our generation that may be struggling with figuring out how can they build something in this new media world that they may not fully understand, and they may be hesitant to move forward? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. The best thing that you can do for yourself, number one, is to own your truth. You have to be true to yourself. Choose to be a lifelong learner. The reason I've been able to transition between so many different mediums is that I'm always choosing to learn and to learn something new. Even though I love how my podcast sounds, I'm always still trying to make it better. I didn't start off with the best microphone. I still don't have what some people would. I don't have a PER 40, but I want to tell you, I sound amazing on that microphone. I tested it out at Podcast Movement. Neither here nor there.
I love my PR. I love my high. It's a good microphone, but
just makes you want to talk to yourself.
I know. But people, if you're listening in, if you don't have a high, don't let that stop you.
No, do not let it stop you. I did not start off with a mixer. Right. I did not start off with a digital recorder. These were just things that I added on. I started the show and I created something. I knew that I wanted sound to be important to me. So I just got started. The same thing when I started shooting video. I didn't have the best camera in the world, but I knew that I wanted it to be visually attractive. So I used the best camera that I could. I learned my angles. I learned how to where to sit, how to sit. I mean, honestly, I didn't buy the first microphone to shoot my videos until last year. And that was because I saw somebody else shooting her videos. And I was like, what is it? I said, tell me about that microphone. She said, it is the best thing ever. So that was an investment for me to go and purchase a good microphone. When it came to the photography, I did not start off with the best camera. I am blessed now to be working with Samsung as an image logger and to receive some amazing cameras to share my vision and to share their incredible products. But I did not start off that way. Mm-hmm. I just had a vision. I had an idea. I had a dream. I wanted to create something. I wanted to honestly have my children be proud of what their mother did. And that is what has always propelled me forward, was that I want my children to see me being a doer, a maker, a creator, not someone waiting to validate me or give me permission. You do not need anyone to validate you for you to just start doing something. But we are hands down our worst enemy and our biggest cheerleader. Mm-hmm. But you have to cheer yourself more than you talk about, you should have did this, you should have did that. The shouldas get on your nerves, but the shouldas are what you have to silence with action. Action silences fear. Action silences doubters. Action silences haters, because a hater can't say nothing to you when you are taking action or you decide I want to be a speaker and you are standing on that stage because somebody believed in you enough to know that you could do it. Then you stand on that stage and you see people looking at you and you're just like, oh my goodness, they're here to listen to me tell them something. Then you can't help but want to be the best that you can be. If you are always thinking from a service mindset, what can I do to help someone else? You cannot fail. It's as simple as that. You take yourself out of it, and how can I help someone else? It's always been what I've been about, is how can I help someone else that's why I made no money as a photographer, is because I wanted people to have beautiful pictures. The podcast is something so selfish that I do for myself because I love talking to people. I can run my mouth. And the podcast allows me to do that and connect with people and to hear their stories. It's completely a selfish indulgence for me that I love. And everything I have done in some way, I don't want to die with any regrets. And I tell my kids, no matter what, you do what you love. You find a way to do it. You find a way to make some money from it. You find a way to help people. If you do that, you cannot fail. It's as simple as that. And if you do fail, who cares? Failure is not a bad thing. Failure lets you know it's time to pivot. Try something different. Mm-hmm. It's all it is. Failure is never a bad thing. I'm like, bring it on. Fail faster and fail forward. It's as simple as that. You do that, you treat people right, you be a good person, you love on haters, you'll be just fine.
Wow, I love that. Did you now wow, you brought it. you brought it. Gen Xers, millennials, boomers, if you're listening, everyone, that was, be true to yourself. I like that. And well, let me just break. So action silences fear. Yes. Action silences doubters.
Yes.
And action silences haters.
Put them in a coma. Put them in a coma. You can put a hater in a coma with the love that you show to them. Hug it out with a hater. I guarantee you they will go in a coma because they will not be able to stand the light that is coming off of you. They won't understand it. It will knock them out.
Mama said knock you out.
Every
time. All right. So speaking of Mama said knock you out, there are two questions that, and I can't wait to hear this.
Bring it, Adrian.
That I like to ask all of my Gen X Amplified guests at the end of the show. And the first one is a little fun. So let's do this. So, Lucrecia, if there was a song that would play every time you enter a room or when you walk down the street that fits perfectly your brand, your story, you, Lucrecer Braxton, what song would that be? Basically, what would be your own personal theme song?
Adrian, I have a theme song. In fact, I went to speak once and they all wanted us to have a song that we would come onto the stage with. Mm-hmm. And this is the song that I came on the stage with. It is Danza Kuduro by Don Omar.
Okay.
It is a song in 100% Spanish that I do not speak. But I can tell you that the song is all about dancing. It's 100% about dancing. And I love the beat of it. It makes me feel good. I actually did a video where I was telling people, I was like, I'm feeling good. I said, I'm feeling so good. I said, I got to play you this song that tells you about how I'm feeling. And I played the song and I'm dancing to it and everything. And I was like, everybody should have a theme song. That is my song right there. People hear it and they know that's a song.
Wow.
That's the song. Danza Kuduro.
Danza Kuduro.
Yes.
Love it. And we're going to have a link in the show notes to that. And also we got to have a link to that video that you just mentioned. So we got to have everyone check you out dancing to your, are you dancing in the video?
I'm talking about the song.
Oh, you're talking
and some
about
other
the song.
stuff.
Right.
So, but I played the song.
You played the
phone
song, but at least you know it's you and you're playing this. That is,
yes.
I love the choice. So you came with it. Okay, and I love that. All right, now the next question. Lastly, if there was one specific tool or resource, Lucrecia, it could be an app, it could be a book, it could be a website, or just a tool or resource that you recommend to people in our generation, Gen Xers, who need to really focus on building their brand, telling their personal story so they can maximize their impact. What resource would that be?
Can I give you two?
Yes, you can definitely give me two.
Okay. The first one, because you talked about building your brand and building your voice. It's the book by Todd Henry. It's his latest one. It's called Louder Than Words. This book is all about building your voice, your story. The things this book is for doers. He says that in the book. If you are not a doer, do not pick up the book. Wow. If you are a person who is ready to, hone your voice and have what you do be about you, that is the book right there. Todd Henry, Louder Than Words. It is bad to the bone.
Love it. Todd Henry, Louder Than Words. Okay. And what's your second resource?
The Pocket app. I go and I read a lot of stuff online, tons of social media reading. I can't read everything because you get caught in the vortex that is content and information. But with the Pocket app, you can go and bookmark certain articles or whatever to read later. It's like putting things in your pocket.
Right.
And I love that app because I keep all kinds of things there. I'll tag it and go back to it later. And the app is so beautiful, the way that it streamlines everything. You can read the article in it. Hands down, one of my favorite resources to use. Not just for building your business, because you have people who will say, well, why would I use that? You can't remember everything, but you can sure as heck sit there and say, okay, I'm going to bookmark that and go read it later. I'll check it out later. It's a great resource. The
Pocket app. Okay, I have to personally check that one out as well. That sounds pretty cool. The Pocket app and Todd Henry, Louder Than Words. This has been fun. This has been a blast. Lucrecia, it's been you've taken me back. You mentioned some Egyptian Lover. I can't believe. That's right. I'm a big Egyptian Lover fan.
I love that song.
No, that style, that whole electro funk. That was it for me.
He has one of the worst album covers for that song because he's leaning on a car with a really bad shag Jerry curl. But that song is the business.
Oh, I love it. I'm sorry. When you mentioned Jerry curl on a podcast, you got to laugh. This has been too fun. You are a joy. The pleasure has been all mine. And again, congratulations on the podcast launch. It is awesome. I encourage everyone out there to definitely check out her podcast. And it is on iTunes and Stitcher, Hello Friend. And, just check out all of your stuff. Check her out on Instagram because she is a photographer. Yes. So I'm assuming, I've seen your Instagram and it is definitely, it is on point, but it's been a pleasure having you on. Tell everybody how they can say hello to you and see what you have going on.
Oh, well, you can find me, of course, on the podcast at hellofriendpodcast.com.
Okay.
I hang out on Instagram. It's one of my favorite platforms. And I'm just Lucrecia there. I'm Lucrecia everywhere except for Twitter. I'm Lucrecer Braxton on Twitter because someone's squatting on my name. But I know that sounds worse than what it is. But otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. I love having conversations there. I love chatting with people through Instagram. You can leave questions on the podcast. I have a page on Facebook for the podcast. It's Hello Friend Podcast. You can find me with the bright orange and pink. And I'm there. You can find me. I'm not hard to find. I have a very uniquely spelled name. All you have to do is Google me, and there I am.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, hanging out with us, the Gen X Amplified community. This was fun.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
All right. Take care.
You take care, too.
Wow. Now, that was fun. That was fun. Lucrecer Braxton, also simply known as Lou. Good stuff. So I want to thank Lucrecer for spending time with us on this podcast. That was truly an awesome chat. A lot of humor, but it was all wrapped up nice in a lot of value. You know, she is definitely building a magnetic personal brand. She's being herself, and I love it. You know, that's what building a brand around you should be like. You know, as one of my previous guests on Gen X Amplified, Mr. Chris Ducka, as he stated, your vibe will attract your tribe. Be yourself, and your true audience, the right audience, will gravitate towards you. And Lucrecer is doing just that. So for the show notes and the links to in the episode that we did mention, you can go over to genxamplified.com/015. And wow, I really did love that interview. But more importantly, I hope that you loved it as well, because that is what really matters to me. So if you did, I would love for you to share this podcast with your friends, with your family, on Facebook, email, Twitter, phone calls, snail mail, all that good stuff. Spread the word, spread the love. Tell them all about Gen X Amplified, and please feel free to give us a rating and a review in iTunes. It truly means a lot. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for checking out all the episodes, including our previous one, if you haven't listened to it already, with Stephen Essa, who is the webinar expert. You definitely want to check that out, because you definitely want to get your webinar game up in 2016. So much value. So that's going to do it for me on this episode. And as always, until next time, my exceptional Gen Xers, now is the time to define your unique story, build your personal, powerful brand, and amplify your greatness so you can maximize your impact in business and life. Thank you so much, and all the best to your success. Take care.